right, everybody. I've got another very special guest for you all. Everybody, please welcome to the show Dan Connor. Welcome, Dan.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on, man. So we always do this with a new guest, and I have to apologize, but we're going to put you through the gauntlet. I want to hear
Sure.
your origin story real quick. How'd you get into comics, and at what point did you see it as something you could do, like creating comics or do professionally?
Yeah. So I was drawing when I was a kid. I used to draw like Ninja Turtles and mutant characters and things like that. I had a sketchbook that I would draw in. And when I started reading comics regularly, I wasn't long before I was like, well, I could try doing this. So even in elementary school, I was just drawing comics, but I wasn't, um, I wasn't copying them or sharing them or anything like that. So once I was in high school, that was around when I heard about webcomics. And I was also learning how to do websites. And I was like, well, I can do webcomics. So I did my first webcomic in 2002, I think. Um,
Oh, wow.
and yeah, and I was still in high school. And then actually in 2002 as well, I submitted to Antarctic Press for the first time, and that was for the Ninja High School Annual. It didn't make it in that year, but it made it in 2005. So I guess they just would have their um, stock submissions that they wanted to put in when they had the space. So 2005 they had, I think it was 2005 they had the space. But parallel to that, I graduated high school early, and I realized that Antarctic Press, well, I'd already known because I'd submitted to them, but that they were where I lived in San Antonio, Texas. And so I called them up and I was like, "Hey, do y'all need like a janitor or anything?" Because I'm thinking they're like some big office, some big, a big building. And they were like, "No, but we offer internships." So I went down and had scheduled a meeting with them and showed them my mostly just my webcomic stuff, and I got the internship. So I was pretty excited. And with them, you're not just like making photocopies, you're actually working on books, mostly doing flat colors, which, if you don't know, flat colors is if, if my face was a comic, it would just be peach. There wouldn't be any shadows or any textures, things like that. So you do the flat colors to then get all the detail by the colorists. So that was one of the things that I did, and a lot of moving boxes as well. Boxes of books because they'd come in from the printer, and then we'd have to take them upstairs to the office, and then we would have to a few days later take them back downstairs to ship to Diamond. Um, so so I just got involved like right away with the publishing industry. So that was when I was like, okay, I can do some of this stuff. I went to college, finished it early, and finished it in a couple years and a few months. And then I didn't get an art degree though. I didn't think that that was the right plan for me. Now I kind of wish I had gone to art school because I'd probably be a better artist than I am, or things would come easier as far as um, perspective and shadows and lighting and anatomy. I mean, my anatomy is off anyway. Like, I don't really draw great in it. I mean, to draw cartoony anatomy, you have to know real anatomy.
Hmm.
Um, and so, like, my anatomy, like, I still draw really big heads and stuff like that, relatively big heads. So, um, so anyway, then after a little while, I was looking for a job, a summer job especially, and I called them up or emailed them, and I was like, "Hey, do you have any positions like that are available?" And they did. So I got paid to be a production assistant, essentially. And I did that, I think, 2 summers because I was substitute teaching during the school year since I had enough college credits to do that. Or once I finished college, um, then you can just substitute teach with, depending on the district. A lot of times that's all you really need is a college degree or an associate's degree even to substitute teach. So I was doing that. Um,
Wow, I could
and
substitute teach.
what's that?
I just learned I could probably substitute teach.
Yeah, man, you probably could. If it's something you want to do, it's actually can be a really good gig because it's day by day, or if you're lucky, you can get something long term, which I was able to do a few times. Um, but yeah, if you have a degree and you don't really know what to do, the pay isn't bad. It's inside. You sit down most of the time. You pass out worksheets. You take roll. You a lot of kids try to act up when there's a substitute teacher, so that can be a little hard, but nothing terrible. And then, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Just check your local district, and you could do it 2 days a week if you wanted, if you just needed to supplement a little bit. So that's what I started doing, was a couple days a week, and then I moved to doing it pretty much full time. And then I got licensed to be a school teacher as well. So I taught school for a few years, taught special education, but now that's been like over 10 years ago.
Oh,
So,
you have all of my heart on that one because that
oh,
takes a
thanks.
special kind of person to do that, especially with
Yeah.
somebody in my family who is autistic and has a lot
Oh,
of
sure.
special needs.
Yeah.
Love him to death, but I mean, he's a handful, and
Yeah.
I I have him over, and I spend time with him quite a bit. It's my
That's
nephew,
great.
but to do that full time as a gig, I don't think I am the type of person that could do it. So much
Yeah.
respect for people that do.
Well, thank you. It was
Yeah.
hard. It was hard. And again, I did that for a number of years, um, but didn't make a career out of it.
Mhm.
And there's different reasons for that, um, but then when I stopped teaching, I was like, okay, I need to make comics work. So I was doing comics on the side of teaching, and I was doing web comics. I did a comic called Heaven Forbid that I did 3 volumes of of books for Lamppost. And I did that when I was teaching. And then I started doing Mike Out the Zombie, um, which was actually like an alternate version of Heaven Forbid, but kind of took off on its own. So I started doing that 10 years ago, and I was doing more conventions, things like that. Really tried to make a go of it. And then I had another couple other jobs, and then I got leukemia 3 years ago, and I was in a coma 3 years ago.
Wow.
So that was pretty crazy. In fact, I woke up from it about 3 years ago, like around today or so. Not the 22nd, but late October. And then I got some new disabilities from my chemotherapy and leukemia, and but I can still draw with my right hand. My left hand is not able to do as much as it used to, but I can still draw with my left hand. So, and I've got some other issues as well. But so I've got disability, and then I do comics to supplement that. There are sometimes that maybe I could just do comics, but it's not so consistent. And I'm also not really working it to try to make full-time money doing comics. It's still something that I do. I mean, I'm doing conventions and appearances. Like I had one earlier today that just came up last week or during the week. So that was why I wanted to adjust the time. Um,
Mhm.
but but yeah, so I do a lot of appearances, signings, and conventions, and anywhere that I can sell my comics. Like it was a Halloween not Halloween Comic Fest. It was a Halloween fest that I was at today. And there were artists set up and different vendors. And I was like, well, I could set up as a cartoonist there. So I
Yeah.
emailed them, and that worked out. And then so I was giving out candy and showing off my comics and sold some. Um, Not as many as I would sell at a comic convention, but it's still not bad. So yeah, I just get
Yeah.
out there like if I can almost every weekend at some event. And in Florida, there's such population density and so many events. I'm about an hour from Orlando. So there's stuff in Orlando and there's stuff in Tampa. There's stuff everywhere. So it's not hard to stay pretty busy with conventions.
Yeah, and I've so my parents live down there part time, and I've been down there quite a
Sure.
bit. And
Cool.
the con scene down there, I've been to a few, including like MegaCon,
Oh,
probably the
cool.
biggest
Yeah.
one. And the density of comic shops is
Yeah.
really cool. Where I live up here in New York, I think we have quite a few, especially compared to like
Sure.
some of the middle country places.
Sure.
But I have to drive 45 minutes to my comic shop. Like that's
Oh, wow.
yeah. So I've always really impressed by the comic scene down in Florida,
Yeah, it's
and
pretty good.
knowing all the creators down there as well that we have on the show that I talk to outside of the show and everything.
Yeah.
It's a really cool scene down there.
Yeah, it's good. And CGC's down here.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good comic stuff in Florida.
Yeah. So you did all that, and like amazing story about your leukemia and all that, and coming
Yeah,
out of
it's
that,
crazy.
and the fact that you're still working it with some disabilities is incredible as well. And
Thanks.
you've managed to take that, and now you're hitting some pretty big mainstream books as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I know you've done a lot of covers for like IDW, and
Mm-hmm.
we were going to talk about Archie in a little bit too. Has that been the bulk of your work, is like cover work, or have you done anything else in the
Um,
meantime?
well, since I have been in remission for cancer, because I wasn't able too much to do much outside of chemotherapy. Once I was out of the hospital, I did inpatient chemotherapy, and then I did outpatient chemotherapy for a number of months. That was 2 years ago. So, or maybe that was 3 years ago. Um, anyway, so I am in remission, and
Awesome.
my doctor thinks that I'm cured, but you can't say that before like 5 years. So anyway, I it depends. It would be hard to do like a full like if I was doing a monthly book, that would
Mhm.
probably be hard. I might be able to do it. It just depends on what type of book it was. But so I've done a number of covers, and I've also done for Antarctic Press some Tomorrow Girl stories. So I did one for I think it's actually in the Ninja High School swimsuit annual that comes out this year. I don't know if it's out yet already or not. I have the digital copy, so I'm not sure if the printed copy is out yet. And then I drew a story. I didn't write it, but drew it. My friend Patricia Krumpetich wrote it. I work with her a lot on comics. She's back in Denver where I lived for like 12 years. I've been in Florida for less than a year now. But she wrote a 4-page story, and I drew that, also featuring Tomorrow Girl. And she's a Antarctic Press superhero that's pretty great. So that story's in the Superverse Festivus special that comes out in December. I think that's what it's called. It's the first Festivus special there's been, but it's like a Christmas issue. So, so I've done those. I've drawn and colored. Well, the first was black and white. Um, the one in the swimsuit issue is black and white, and I did like a beach story. It was very like DC Silver Age. She was fighting like a sand monster. Um,
That's awesome.
yeah, yeah, and um, then I colored the Festivus stories. So yeah, so I've done some other stuff. Nothing too big as far as sequential pages. Like I haven't done a story for Archie. I'd love to. I think I could
Mhm.
handle it. But I need to finish up some other work first before I go and go look for new big projects. Like I can do
Yeah.
covers. It depends on the cover. I can do a cover in a couple days, a few days, 2 to 3 days.
Mhm.
Um, but that's still like all day. I could be faster. I think I did the Archie Halloween cover I think I did that in a day. Other than the sketch, I'd already done the sketch of it to get approved, but I think I did the whole cover in about a day actually. Um, but that one was really good because I was very focused on it. You know, it was Archie and Betty and Veronica in a pumpkin, so I knew exactly what to do for it. So that was that. I didn't have to take like another day to figure things out, and I didn't really add anything from the original sketch. So, um, so that was easier to do. But some of the others take a few days. Normally, I need a couple days.
So I mean, we're talking about the Archie covers a little bit here. So let's, I
Yeah,
mean, pull up. You have some coming out, and what I noticed when we were going through them prior to the show, looks like here's the sketch for the Halloween
yeah,
one, is that
yeah,
you have a style here that really works for Archie,
yeah.
uh, with everything they do, especially like the classic Archie. So it almost
Yes.
feels like a throwback. Is
Mm-hmm.
that intentional when you're doing these covers, or is that just how your
Completely.
style works out?
Well, that's how I learned to draw about 10 years ago when I started doing My Gal the Zombie. My goal was to draw it as like on model 50s and 60s Archie. And so I think that I was successful with that. The staff that I've met at the publisher at Archie, which I've met a lot of the people there at conventions, they seem to like that style. And then I never did get any like story work or cover work until I started doing the exclusive variant covers. And and then this that you see here, can I? Yeah, okay. You can see my actually there we go. There's the lasso tool. That might be better. Or this is probably good. Yeah, the mouse. So this is with Famous Faces and Funnies, one of the stores down here in Florida. Really great store. They've been nominated for an Eisner Spirit of Retailer Award before, but they're a great shop. So I did this with them, and yeah. So in fact, that sketch was I edited it. This one I'd already I you can see that I moved Betty and Veronica a little bit, moved them over, made some changes to that, but the sketch is pretty similar. So that's what I sent to Archie to get. Oh, did I have? Let me see. No, okay, that's fine. Um, so that's what I sent to them to get approved to do the cover, and I just colored orange in for fun because I had an orange marker with me. You don't have to do that. You can just do black and white. But it's pretty loose. Um, so then I tried to do, like, if you look at Betty's hair, they don't do her hair like that anymore. They used to do it like kind of in these circles down on top of her shoulders. They
Mhm.
used to do that like in the 50s and even the 40s. They don't do that anymore, but I really like it. So they let me do it.
Yeah, and it's those little touches. Like I'm not the biggest Archie fan, but
Sure.
it's Archie is so there's such a classic look to it. Like I think that
Yeah.
most, especially comics people, can pull out Archie art. Like it's its
Yeah.
own feel, its own style, and everything. And it's
Yeah.
those little things that really come out to me with it. Where you're right, I could see this being in one of the early Archie books in the 50s and 60s and everything. And I think that's what works really well with your style and these
Yeah.
covers.
Yeah, no, I'd love that. Because when I reference Archie, how to draw it, how to get his hair right, things like that, I always go back to the older works. I go back to Dan DiCarlo a lot, um, and especially his work for Archie was great in the every decade till he stopped working for them. I mean, there's different things every decade that stand out that I like, but ultimately, I think I like the 50s and 60s the most. In fact, if you look here, you can see so the girl's lips are black instead of colored in red
Hmm.
or pink, and that's definitely something that they they used to do, especially early Dan DeCarlo, like the 50s. The girls' lips were just black. They didn't outline them and color them in. And um, I don't know if that kind of looks gothic or not, but I think it works for the Halloween cover especially. But I can actually show some others. So this came out this month, came out a couple weeks ago. And then my thought was they're not actually in a pumpkin, but that this is like cardboard. I mean, not cardboard, like what do you call it? Wood, not particle board, plywood. That this is like a
Like
plywood stand up or something with some
like
light behind it.
like kind of like an exotic dancer coming out of a cake kind of thing.
I guess, yeah, I didn't really think of that, but because it's not exactly a pumpkin, like it's way too big to be a pumpkin,
Yeah.
and then even the proportions are it's kind of flat. It's not really very rounded. So that's my idea is that they're standing behind it, they're standing on something, but I wanted to have at least their hips above it, so that they're like standing down. Although their feet are probably over here.
I was
And
saying, looking at it, it seems like they're on stage or something, and this is like
yeah,
the prop they're using to.
yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. And then there's not really a background elements. Like I don't have a house or trees, so that's another reason this was fast to draw. But what I did was I used, if you notice all the sunburst type effects, the lines, I used a manga tone for that I've actually used one other time, but I love it. It's got like speed lines, and then but some of it's got a pattern of circles that have been erased from it. So I really love that screen tone. That's actually one that I bought. It wasn't that I bought on paper. It was not one that I got in like a download pack. So this was like Deleter, I think Deleter brand that I bought, and then I scanned it in. So I just thought that would work really well, and I think it did.
Yeah, really pops.
Yeah, thank you. So that came out this month. I'm trying to think if there's anything else of note really about it. Veronica's hair. I always find her hair a little tricky because sometimes it's short in older stories, but how it has some little like flips that come out, things like that, and the blue highlights can be a little tricky. But yeah, her hair is different decade by decade. So is Betty's. But I very much do early Archie for like Betty's hair, which is how I like it. And that's another thing. If I talk to them about just doing a story, I'd probably have to do on model for this decade instead of like 40s or 50s or 60s. So, which is fine. I could do on
Yeah.
model for that. I haven't really talked to them recently about any of that, uh, but who knows? In the coming months, I might be like, hey, I've had fun with covers. What else can we do? So, um, yeah, and then that was the sketch. I've got it. That was actually on paper. I still have that on paper somewhere. And then I did this Sabrina cover. This came out last month, and as you can see, like her head's really big, even um, compared to this piece. Sabrina's head's huge. It's like the same size as her torso, but I just enjoyed doing it that way. In fact,
Yeah.
originally I had the girls' heads bigger in the Halloween piece, and then a friend of mine was like, "Yeah, their heads are kind of big." So, but I like this. I like this cover a lot. Again, not really a big complex background, just kind of like magical smoke is what I'm thinking, and then the stars. But it's got like the lightning coming out of her finger. We've got Salem there, and we've got a broom in a mini skirt. Um, so yeah, that's my Sabrina cover that I'm really proud of. Came out last month.
It's yeah, and as somebody who doesn't have a very discerning eye for those little details, the head wouldn't really pop out to me, to be honest.
Sure. Yeah, I think it fits the piece, and
Yeah.
I do have some manga influence as well. I bring that in with the old school Archie, so I have a little bit of that going on. But you can see this one here; it's got the filled in lips. So I didn't do solid black lips for Sabrina, so I filled them in. And my mom said that this really reminded her of what she used to see at the grocery store when she was a kid. So I was happy about that. So
Yeah, it does have that has like a 70s mom vibe going on.
sure.
Like I think of that 70s show and you see the
Okay.
older women in there, like that's
Yeah,
the kind of style that would. So once
that's cool.
again, fits that idea of you liking the classic Archie style
Yeah.
a lot.
Oh, 70s. Archie did great work in the 70s. I've got a, I think it's a DVD of, it was released by Archie a couple, like 10, like 15 years ago. And it's every issue of Betty and Veronica for the entire decade. So I've got a DVD of that. That's really cool. So you can look at them year by year. So I really dig that DVD set. Um, but yeah, great work. Lots of bell bottoms, lots of bright colors. So yeah, their 70s work was great.
I would love to hear a little bit from you as we're on this. I mean, as somebody who's never gotten really into Archie, what is it about Archie that really appeals to you? Like, what's the thing there that really keeps bringing you back to those books?
The humor really about it. And Archie's the last one publishing humor books of that style. DC used to publish stuff that looked like Archie and was humorous like Archie. They had their own characters, and Marvel did too. In fact, Dan DeCarlo worked for Marvel for years before he worked for Archie. He worked for some other publishers as well. Um, but yeah, lots of publishers and other publishers that are out of business used to publish characters like Archie. And it's just like, I mean, I would say it's wholesome humor.
Mhm.
When I was struggling with some things a little while back, I was reading the digests, and I was just real. I would read like a different digest story like every day or so, and it just takes you away from your worries for 5 or 10 minutes, and just has humor, like something silly, and that was also why Josie really appealed to me. And I've got this coming out next month. Josie stories are typically longer than Archie stories or Betty and Veronica stories. At least the original Josie stories, they would be full comic length, whereas a
Mhm.
lot of Archie and Betty and Veronica stories are like 5 pages. So I think you had better storytelling in Josie. You could, or more developed storytelling. Um, and it's just funny stuff. It's just, I mean, they're teenagers. I don't think it really matters that they're teenagers. It's, and especially as Josie and the Pussycats progress, they're not really school stories. They're about the band, and I could relate to that because I was a musician. Um, and I just really enjoyed reading about this band of girls that dressed up in uh, leopard print leotards and had different. It's kind of like Scooby Doo.
Mhm.
Different calamity ensues. Their manager's sister is a witch as well as Sabrina, and so like she would cause trouble for Josie, and she always wanted to be in their band, um, but she never was. So I really enjoyed for a little while in my life, um, over 10 years ago. I was really enjoying Josie stories because of I guess the simplicity of them and of it, of like the humor style. It's just Americana. I don't want to say simplicity in a demeaning way, but just America, just straightforward
Yeah.
comics. And you don't have to worry about continuity. You can just read a story. Archie might be dating Betty in this story, and Valerie from the Pussycats in the next story. He dated her for a while. Um, and then Veronica in another one. He'll just, go out with different girls, and whatever that story is what you're reading, and then the next month it might be different. And they do enough reprints in the digest that every month was a different Josie story, so that was pretty good. I liked Josie a lot before the Pussycats. Those are really really good comics. The Pussycats are really good too, and I'm looking forward to this issue because it's, I think, Josie's 60th anniversary, and it's going to have some of the early Josie stories as well as Pussycat stories. And then there's the cartoon of Josie and the Pussycats from the 70s
Mhm.
that's really good. It's by Hanna-Barbera. It actually they had an episode of Scooby Doo that they crossed over, but it's very Scooby Doo. They go up against monsters and things, and then the second season they go to outer space. And I think that the band goes to space in this issue. I don't see the issues until they come out. I mean, I get them early, not when they come out. I get them early from as far as when they're shipped, before comic shops do.
Yeah.
But like I don't get it before it goes to print. I get it after it prints.
Yeah. It's funny. Like, I understand what you mean by not wanting to use simple as a
Yeah,
derogatory way, but we talk about that on the show all the time too, where occasionally you don't, I mean, you don't always have to do the complex hero story where like you're
yeah.
breaking down the superhero. And Mike, who's my normal co-host on the show, is a big fan of just Godzilla comics because he
Oh, that's
goes,
cool.
I just like to read about two giant kaiju fighting each other once in a while. And it's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's cool.
like,
Yeah,
so I understand what you mean when you're saying that, and it's so interesting to me because it's and I think we all feel this way in some manner where there's something that's just outside of our wheelhouse, and to think that like Archie's been around for 80 years and Josie and the Pussycats for 60 years and all these comics,
yeah,
and for me, for someone like me where I don't have the interest for them, it's amazing that they've lasted this long, but they've
yeah,
lasted this long, it's obviously because they're good, like people are
yeah,
enjoying them like yourself. So,
yeah. They put in a lot of quality work,
mhm.
and Dan Parent's one of their main artists right now, and he's been doing great work for them since the 80s. So you get yeah, you get a lot of great team humor and band humor, and what else? Witches humor, Sabrina, a lot of fun stuff, and they all cross over with each other. So that's fun too. I think that Josie and the Pussycats make an appearance in the Sabrina annual just briefly. Actually, their manager's sister Alexandra, she's I think teams up with Sabrina for a witch challenge against some evil witches. It's something like that. Um, no spoilers. So yeah, so they even made an appearance there, and then Sabrina's in the Halloween Spectacular, so that was really fun. But Josie's not in
Yeah.
it too bad. But in a Betty and Veronica cover issue that I did, maybe I have that cover I can pull up. Um, Josie made an appearance in that one, so this is I think this is it here. Um, that might be my version before Archie put their actual logo on it, because I think the and rock and roll was what I copied and pasted, but um, but that was fun. I really liked this cover. I need to the store Game Changer that I did these with. They've got my stock of them. I need to get more copies of it. But yeah, so that I did
Yeah.
that earlier in the year.
Yeah, and that one's a little bit different than the other ones. It has it feels more classic manga actually to me.
Well, this new character is very manga,
Yeah.
so I can't remember her name right now. Jola, I think. Jola Kit, maybe. I think that's it. So yeah, she definitely has a manga nose. And that was why I drew her as such in this one, because that's how she was in the comic itself. So yeah, yeah,
That,
that was a
that's
that was a fun one.
that's really cool. And so you've been doing a lot of this cover work, and you talked a lot about wanting to do more with Archie. And uh, would you want to just draw like a story, or I
Sure.
mean, I know you're getting into writing. Would you want to write
Yeah.
something for them? Like, what were you thinking when you're thinking about talking to them about it?
Either way, I think I could write pretty well. But I think I could draw it too. It would be a challenge for me to do a monthly book, but I could do a 5 pager. Most of
Mhm.
the new stories are 5 pages, so I could take a couple weeks and probably do that up. Feel good about it because I want to be able to do it in a way that I like. And there's a lot of pressure of doing full stories. Even the Tomorrow Girl stories that I did, especially the Christmas one, I felt a lot of pressure doing that one. Uh, I mean, it was fun, it was good, but it's hard work, especially if you're normally I'll color my own stuff when I do the stories myself. So if you're writing, or I didn't write that one, but if you're drawing and you're coloring and you're lettering, it's a lot to do. So, but again,
Oh,
if I did draw for Archie, I'd probably, because they assembly line it, I probably would just draw it, and they'd still get someone else to letter it and color it. But I could do, I mean, I've colored as well. I could, if the thing is, I'm not really trying to get regular story work from anybody right now. It's
mhm.
just easy to do some covers. And I mean, like I said, I stay pretty busy with conventions and appearances that, like, I'll work on comics during the week, and then I'll go do an event Saturday or Sunday, or both Saturday and Sunday. And I mean, not that I don't go out of town or out of Florida. I was in Chicago. I was in Boston this year. Um, so I definitely like to. I was in Denver, back in Denver where I lived. So I definitely like to get out of to fly different places. But I
Mhm.
also want to go to Georgia. Georgia's not far. I wanted to do a Savannah convention, but I didn't hear back from them. So I used to live outside Savannah as well. So it would be fun to do Savannah, and Atlanta would be good. There, I mean, Georgia is so close that I probably would just drive it, and then I could probably drive to. There's some stuff in Alabama, not as much, but there's some, and then there's some stuff in Louisiana, so that's not far. And then you get to Texas if you go west, and Texas has a lot, but Texas is too far to drive for a convention. But
Yeah.
um, Georgia and Alabama aren't. So anyway, I stay pretty busy with that. So I do a lot of my drawing is sketch covers. um, like, because of the backs I do is as sketches. In fact, I can grab one just a second. So I typically do these where the back cover, I learned from Ben Bishop about doing this for turtles. The back cover is a blank. So it's like a regular sketch cover that you get on the front. So that's on the back. And then I just do Sharpie sketches because these are not on sketch cover paper
Mhm.
that you can like pencil and erase. These are just Sharpies. So it's like a tattoo. It's like whatever you draw, like that's it. So this was actually Josie on the back of this, the Archie Halloween issue. Um, and so I do a lot of drawings of those. I'll do those at conventions, and I'll do sketches like those all day, um, at some cons at least. So so I do a lot of those. I don't know of anybody else that does just Sharpie sketches like that, but it's easy to not pay for sketch cover stock. You can just do it on the regular stock, and I can just grab a Sharpie and enjoy it.
Yeah, have a little more fun with it. I
Yeah,
I mean, I hear a lot from artists across the industry that that cover works really is where it's at. Like it's kind of the not to demean it, but it's like in terms of like compared to like interior work, it's
sure.
minimal effort, maximum reward kind of.
In some ways, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
what I learned for Nightmare Before Christmas Zero's journey, I was the colorist for that 20 issue series, and that was amazing. But
Mhm.
what I realized was there was a different cover artist, so I wasn't coloring the covers. And even the inside artists, penciler and inker, were not coloring we're not drawing the covers. Oh, look at my finger twitching. See, that's some of my disability stuff. Like, I'm not meaning to move my finger, it
Oh.
just twitches. That's my left hand. So so anyway, I would have my table with all these books, and people just walk by and they'd say, "Oh, this looks great." And I would love that they said that it looks great, because that's a great compliment on the work. But at the same time, they were complimenting the covers that weren't my work. And
Yeah.
so I would still say thank you because people were being nice. Um, and ultimately it's still the same project, so I'm glad that they like it. But I'd be like, well, my work's inside. So cover work is great because, like, if I have a table full of my covers standing across my the table, in fact, I bet I can get one of those pictures really quick. Um, if I have a table full of my covers, oh, I don't. I guess I didn't post it. I thought I posted it. Why is it not there? Weird. So if I have a table
Well,
full of my covers, then then even if I didn't do the insides, you're still seeing my work.
yeah.
So like these actually this issues are really good, and so is the recent Sabrina issue, and I know the new Josie issue is going to be great as well. But even though I didn't do the insides, when people walk up, they see the covers, so I can easily say this is my work. And a lot of times you buy variant covers for the cover art. I mean, that's the truth. People are they're buying this book that I hope they read it, but they're choosing this copy of it for the cover art instead of the other cover, or maybe they collect all the covers. I just was buying the new She-Hulk, Sensational She-Hulk this week, and I thought about buying multiple covers because there were great covers, but I just bought one.
Yes, that old adage, like, don't judge a book by its cover. But in comics, we have a business model that says judge a book by its cover.
Oh yeah, yeah, and then you have publishers who are known for their cover work and known for their insides not being very good. And no offense to whoever those publishers might be, but that's disappointing when you grab a book and it's got a really good cover, even if the insides are great. Like the new She-Hulk, it looks amazing. The insides are great. Like I love the book, but there were some covers that were very different and stylistically.
Yes.
So, so if you grab the book and you had like the Ryan Gonzalez cover, and then you got looked in the inside, you'd be like, well, this is just as good, but it's very different. Um, and so sometimes you judge it and it's a little different style, but I do say judge a book by its cover, because if it's a lousy cover, if a book has a lousy cover, it's probably a lousy book. If a book has a really good cover, it might, depending on the publisher, it might not be a great book. But
Well, I always bring up I mean, Marvel is most notorious for this, and I personally love it, but I've been reading and buying comics for over 20 years now, so I'm a
sure,
little bit seasoned in all this.
yeah,
But like, uh, Alex Ross does a ton of covers for them.
yeah,
Alex Ross doesn't do interiors anymore. Like,
no,
and
his
Alex
first work
Ross's
was
style is
interior.
much different from everybody else in the industry.
Oh yeah, nobody paints like that. Yeah,
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. I think as this is coming out, the new issue of Immortal Thor's coming out, and it's going to be an Alex Ross
okay,
cover,
sure,
and the interior art is beautiful and it's really great, but it's not Alex Ross.
right. It's very different.
So
Yeah,
yeah, it can be kind of jarring for some, especially new people who are like, but I like that,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. That's hard.
But that's, that's the model that the industry has set up over the years. I mean, that's how it is. You got to get people to buy multiple covers, and
Well, that's the cheat, because anything else you have to buy a new product. If you're buying baseball bats, you have to buy a new baseball bat. For comics, you just have to replace the cover and you can sell another one. You don't have to do a monthly book or multiple monthly books. You could just do one monthly book and have two or three covers on it, and that's three different products. And some people will buy all three, and some people will buy one. Some people won't buy any. But you have a different cover, so it's a different product, and that's a very good cheat. You don't have to make a whole new issue. You can have just a new cover and sell twice as many comics, maybe a third as many, 50% more, maybe.
yeah, it's always been interesting to me because I've there's been a few times, and I'm not immune to buying multiple
Oh,
covers,
sure.
but for the most part, I'm a cover A guy. Like, just give me cover A. I just want to read my comic,
Yeah.
and it's amazing to me that there's people that go to my shop that buy as many, if not more, comics than me. But in reality, they're buying like 4 comics because they're
Yeah.
buying 4 comics with every cover.
Right. 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 Well, and then you have like what I do. the retail exclusive covers that you
Mhm.
can only get from that retailer or from the artist sometimes.
Yeah.
You can't get them at the regular comic store. So if you want to collect, like Turtles has a lot of variant covers like that. And I have a friend that was collecting every cover of every book for Turtles, and that's a lot.
Yeah.
There are books that come out, like Last Ronin might have 50 covers just for one book. Um, and so like number 5, I think that I had a cover for Last Ronin that had a lot of covers. And issue 1 did as well. I think that it died down a little bit in the middle issues because I always say if you can't be first, you got to be last. So if you're not doing the issue 1 cover, do the last issue of the series cover. That I think that just makes the most sense. Who wants issue number 2 cover? I don't.
Yeah.
I'll go with the last one is the most significant after the first, I think. So that's why I went for, and then I had to get it worked out for Last Ronin anyway, to do a cover for the last issue. And that was actually very, very profitable because as those issues have risen in value, then I mean, it's not a secret. You can sell those for more money. So
Yeah.
that's another trick in comics is when books go up in value and then you can sell them for the going rate. Instead of selling it for $8, you can sell it for more than $8. So when it comes out, you might sell it for $8. But if the video game's announced and the values go up, like with Last Ronin, everybody this year, I had more people interested in Last Ronin this year than last year when the issue came out. And this year, everyone's like, "Oh, there's a video game coming out for this. I want to see the comic." And I'm like, "Yeah, man." And so that the video game being announced got a lot more non-comic readers interested in Last Ronin, Ninja Turtles Last Ronin, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I love when that happens because things happen. And Walking Dead's always the example I give. When that was like at the height of its power, my retailer would always tell me like that show in particular did more to sell comic books than any Marvel movie or any DC
Sure.
movie because people were so in love with it and they came and they're like, I heard this is based on a comic. And non-comic readers think of comics as flights and tights, which it is a lot, but
Lights and tights, yeah.
um, but then this thing comes out and they're like, "But this is based on a comic. I got to see what this is." And they would
Yeah.
buy the first volume, and it created comic readers. Is what I'm saying, and
Yeah.
I love seeing that with Last Ronin now, and you're seeing a little bit more with some other things like Spider-Verse got a lot of kids interested in specifically Miles Morales, but
Yeah.
Spider-Man again, and yeah, I mean, the secondary parts of that is Spider-Verse comes out, and my Ultimate Fallout number 4 is now my retirement plan, but
Oh, sure.
that's not the important part.
Yeah. So you bought that one when it came out?
Yes,
That's awesome.
that's one of my things that I have a complete run of is Miles
Oh,
Morales.
cool.
Yeah,
Oh, that's great.
every Miles Morales issue. So
Yeah, that's cool.
yeah.
Every appearance, even in other books?
So I might not have like if he showed up in She-Hulk
Sure.
24 or something, I probably don't have that, but I have all
You
the
didn't.
Champions issues he's part of, the Avengers
Yeah,
issues
that's
he's
cool.
part of. So but all of his solo books and the
Yeah.
annuals and everything like that. Because I
Yeah.
love that character from moment one. Like it was just
Oh,
really
cool.
cool to see a reimagining of Spider-Man.
Yeah, he's a good character, and he brought a lot of youth back to Spider-Man, which Spider-Man got old. He grew up.
Yeah, which when I look back on it, I was like, the reason I love Miles so much is because my other favorite Spider person was Spider Girl, and Spider Girl was another example of Marvel saying we've got old quote unquote Spider Man. Let's bring in this kid. We'll call
Yeah.
it an Elseworlds or a different universe story,
Yeah.
and we can have like high school, college Spider-Man again. And
Yeah.
that's where Spider-Man is at its best, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, Spider-Girl was great. I'm glad
Yeah.
that they brought her back with some of the I forget what it was when they were doing all the different universes. One of the things they were doing.
Secret Wars.
Yeah, probably Secret Wars, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they brought her back again because it had been a few years. And I really liked the Renew Your Vows run of I guess that was Secret Wars of Spider-Man. That was
Mm-hmm.
cool. And they had a different Spider-Girl who was younger. So So yeah, those are things that get people excited, and I think that
Mhm.
Walking Dead, because you had one writer and a couple artists, but it was very cohesive. It was
Yes.
very much a narrative
It was
that,
manga-esque
well,
in the
yeah,
way
that's true
in
too.
the
Yeah,
way it was released.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and it's all one vision.
Mhm.
Whereas a lot of other comics, you get 5 issues of one vision, and then it changes, and you get somebody else on it, or you've got the major crossover that it crosses over with. So it's got to be part of Secret Wars or whatever, what have you. And then it's like, well, did you want to read the crossover with everything else? Did you not want to read that? And Walking Dead doesn't do that. You just read Walking Dead. In fact, I don't know if there's really any crossovers with Walking Dead. If they are, I bet they're very few. Um,
There's ancillary books, but
yeah.
like we're talking. So Walking Dead was weird. 'Cause I was really into Walking Dead for a long. I still love that series. I think to the end that book is very good, and history will be kind to that book. But they did like a Michonne miniseries, but it was published in Playboy,
What?
and then
That's crazy.
yeah, and then later published as like one issue. I think it was like 36 pages.
Sure.
They did like a Negan hardcover that was like a
Yeah, I
96
remember that.
page OGN. So they did stuff like that, but for the most part, you had just The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing not written by Kirkman is the I forget what they called it now, but Brian K. Vaughan wrote it, and it was
Oh, okay.
actually a Walking Dead story set in Europe.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it was part of his online comics thing he did that
Sure.
Private Eyes came out of, and a few other books he did. It was
Cool.
a cool story, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, so getting on all that, kind of moving on with your career, you've
Hmm.
done all these great covers and everything. You're an artist, and you're also moving into writing, correct?
Yeah. Well, when I first got with Antarctic Press, they were like, well, they're like, your art's good, but your writing's better. So I was kind of geared more to be a writer, to follow that path. So my art's kind of caught up into some degree with the writing that I had started. But then I was able to write the new Nightmare Before Christmas miniseries, and thus graphic novel that collects the miniseries. So that came out last summer. It's doing really good.
Yeah, and that came out from Tokyo Pop, right?
Tokyo Pop. They license it from Disney.
So now, educate me a little about Tokyo Pop because I had
Sure.
always thought that Tokyo Pop was a manga publisher.
They are. So technically, what I wrote for them was Disney manga. So Battle for Pumpkin King reads American way. I forget, left to right, right to left, whatever way it is.
Hmm.
Zero's Journey reads the reverse. It was actually penciled in Japan, the series that I colored. So first I colored Nightmare Before Christmas, and then I was able to say, hey, I can write too. I tried to draw it as well, but my drawing didn't really cut it, and that's fine. Um, but my writing did, so I got to write it.
So you wrote it. It was then sent to a Japanese artist, and they created it.
No, it was
Right.
actually it was drawn by an Italian artist.
Oh, really?
So, yeah,
In a manga style?
manga enough.
Manga enough. I love it. That's
Enough.
really funny
Yeah.
because I hear I'm a very casual manga reader.
Okay.
But getting more and more into it recently. But I hear a lot from that crowd that they're like, well, if it's not made in Japan, it's not really manga. And I'm just like, I pretty sure I see a lot of like manga influence artists out there nowadays. I'm
Oh
pretty
yeah.
sure I could challenge that. And to hear you say that, and for me feeling that these books, I thought they were manga, at least Tokyo Pop was manga, and I'd seen some of
Yeah.
the art in their books and everything. That kind of proves my point.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have what's called like international manga,
Hmm.
or original English language manga, OEL. And if it's done with manga esque storytelling and manga esque um, art, or Deborah Allo is the artist of Battle for Pumpkin King. Um, but if it's done in with manga story aesthetics, then I think it counts as manga. I mean, Antarctic Press has been publishing. That was one of the reasons I first read their books was they were manga styled, even though they were made in America. Um, but at that time, you couldn't get a lot of Japanese manga in stores.
Mhm.
So it's like, oh, okay, now you can get this American manga. Um, so that was one of the appeals to it. And Tokyo Pop released a lot of original English language manga. But yeah, it's still manga. Now, some people say, well, it's got to be, even when I worked at Anarch Press and we had people coming up at conventions and they'd be like, well, this wasn't drawn in Japan. It's like, okay, so what?
Did you
You know?
enjoy the story? Yes. Okay, then what do you care?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there'd be people, they'd be like, well, one time it was funny. They were like, well, this one was drawn in Japan, but these others weren't. And I was like, none of them were drawn in Japan, but I didn't say that. So I don't know if they bought it or not, um, but yeah, the artist on that book could very much emulate a Japanese style. And there's a lot of different Japanese styles. There's a lot of manga that doesn't get released in the U.S. that looks
Yes.
different. Um, we get the best of the best, or the most popular of the most popular. There's tons of stuff we don't get.
Yeah, definitely. And I've heard the other way around too, where sometimes some of our comics make their way over to Japan and other countries, but it's not everything. It's
Oh
definitely not
yeah,
everything.
yeah. Like I heard about the Japanese version of The Last Ronin graphic novel, so that was pretty cool. I haven't seen it, but one of my Facebook friends has her pieces in it. I don't know if mine is, but hers is in it at least in Japan,
Yeah.
so that's pretty cool.
So when when you're presented with the Nightmare Before Christmas
Mm-hmm.
project, how do you tackle something like that? Because that's such an iconic movie. That's also like, even for someone like me who's not a big fan of musicals. I mean, that movie's a musical. How does that translate to comics or manga in this case for you to tell those stories?
So we weren't able to do like songs in it. In fact, at one point I I was instructed to write some character, some part, not character. Well, I guess you're writing the characters, but to write the what I was writing in verse and rhyming uh, poetry, and then they decided to not use that, which was fine. Um, so we couldn't do songs and we couldn't really do poems that much. We could not in mine. We didn't really have any poems in what I wrote, but they already had the outline that was approved for it, so that made it easy. All I needed to do is take the outline and make changes to it as Disney wanted, and then flesh it out. I mean, there was a lot that was added, but they had the basic idea of Jack versus Oogie Boogie, and and I'd actually written another piece that wasn't used, not yet at least. So we did a nightmare, another one we were developing that got put on pause, and I don't know if that's ever going to get released. Um, but yeah, doing Battle for Pumpkin King was pretty good because I just wrote it based on kind of um, editorial outlines. So it was pretty good.
So literally, like, editorial had an outline, like, this is where these are the beats we need to hit along the story, and then
No, kind of like look at just an outline for the whole graphic novel. It was like, we want this to happen. Here's a game we want them to play. And then Disney said they couldn't play that game. Here's a competition. Disney said we couldn't do that. So we have to change it. Stuff like that. Um, so I went in and made the changes that Disney said and then fleshed it all out. So
Disney still has a strong hand in these. Then, like, they're Bob Iger's coming down and be like, no, they can't play dodgeball in this one.
not Bob Iger, but the Disney staff. But it wasn't dodgeball. But yeah, they were
Yeah.
like, you can't do this. It's too similar to this other something. So if they thought that playing a certain game competition was too similar to another movie franchise, they're like, we can't do this. So we just didn't do it.
I'm sure that might have been a little frustrating on your end, but as a fan, I kind of love that because while Disney, there's a lot of criticism to go around about Disney, and
Sure.
some of it deserves, some of it not.
Yeah.
To hear that a IP that outside of like something like this and like a game like Kingdom Hearts,
Yeah.
they don't really do much with it, and personally love that because the movie stands on its own. I don't think we need a ton of Nightmare Before Christmas movies.
I agree.
But to do projects like this and to still have a strong hand on it, that shows an amount of care and love
Oh yeah.
that they still have. That's really great to hear. Did that frustrate you at all in the process? Like, oh man,
Mm,
like I really wanted to have Jack do this, but like Disney's up my ass about it. Or did you just kind of roll with the punches, be like, well, he'll do this instead, whatever.
yeah, just roll with the punches. I mean, when we were going to do some of it all in verse and poetry, and then we decided not to, so I rewrote that. That's just how it goes. But um, to me, I never really care because it's a great opportunity to be able to work on the project. So it's Disney's toys. I get to play with them. So if they say you can't do this, like, why do I care? Doesn't matter to me. If I
Yeah.
have to rewrite something because Disney said they didn't want to do a certain thing, then I rewrite it. The book's still coming out. So I don't care.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, I think at the end of the day, when you're dealing with IP, you have to have in the back of your head, like somebody else is going to come in after me and do something with it. So I can't break the toys. I have to put them back when I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, Disney definitely cares what's done. And they keep continuity across different mediums because the writer of the novels for Nightmare Before Christmas, she told me that there was something that she wanted to do, but apparently we'd already done that in comics or something. So like they keep the continuity pretty close.
That in itself is quite fascinating to me. I would love to talk
Yeah.
to somebody who's like the continuity expert for whatever brand. It doesn't matter because
Yeah.
that's a lot. And then I think of like a franchise I love, like Star Wars, where we can amplify what's going on with Nightmare Before Christmas by probably 100, and
Yeah.
somebody's in charge of that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
So the Nightmare Before Christmas book, it came out, so it's currently available for everybody to pick up.
Yeah, it's in stores all over. It's in Walmart, it's in Target, it's in Barnes and Noble and Books a Million and online, Amazon, the Tokyo Pop website. You can get it all over the place. I mean, literally Walmart. It's crazy.
That's insane, right there. That's got to
Yeah.
be like crazy for you.
Yeah, it is. I always thought that if you had stuff in Walmart, you kind of made it. So I'm really proud of that. It's not a New York Times bestseller, but it's a Publishers Weekly bestseller. So
That's awesome. That's great for any kind of comic work,
yeah,
especially. Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. So I'm thankful.
So have they announced anything further for you? Do you have anything coming
No,
up or?
I personally don't. I don't know if they're working on some other Nightmare Before Christmas or not. They haven't told me. Last I knew, I was in great graces with Tokyo Pop. I love those guys and girls, women and men, and and I guess women, men, and non-binary folks, all of them. Um, I love everybody at Tokyo Pop, so we get along really well. So I kind of think that if there's going to be more to write, I might get a shot at it, but I might not. Maybe somebody else will get to. I'm just glad to get to do what I've been able to do, and I've got enough copies to sell for a while.
Awesome. So you got that out there. You got some great covers. Are all the covers for Archie for the comic shop exclusive variants, or are they
Yeah,
available?
they're all variants for most of them are with Game Changer out of Nebraska, where I lived for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a really good friend. We've been friends for a number of years now, who has a comic shop up in Nebraska in a small town. And so we're able to do the variants because he likes doing that. And I like doing it too. And then I have the one with famous faces and funnies. in
Okay.
Florida.
So a bunch of great variants. And then we'll see what 2024 brings for you. I'm sure you got
Yeah,
some
you
big
never know.
projects you're hiding from me, but I
No,
understand
not really.
that.
No, I don't really have anything I'm hiding. If I did, I'd say, well, I'm working on this, but I can't say what it is. But no, keeping it, doing a lot of, I do conventions and signings and Halloween fests more than, more than I do those a lot, kind of more than drawing pages. I could probably make more money doing that than just drawing comics. So it's not only about money, but I like interacting with people. I like going to conventions and Halloween fests to meet people. So I get to do that more than if I'm just at home drawing comics or at Panera Bread drawing comics.
Well, real quick, because I do, you've been very generous with your time and I want to wrap
Oh,
it
thank
up.
you.
When you
Okay.
were doing the Halloween Fest, did you get a lot of interest in the Nightmare Before Christmas stuff?
Yeah. A lot of people were. A lot of it was because they're different vendors and selling all sorts of things like candles, and there was a gymnastics studio that was advertising
Mhm.
their studio. Um, so so yeah, I got interested in it. A lot of people liked it, but a lot of it was just kids wanting candy. So that was fun.
Yeah, it is Halloween.
Yeah, well, and then you don't really get. I haven't lived somewhere that got a lot of trick or treaters in I don't know ever since I was a kid. Maybe like a lot of people don't do the trick or treating anymore, or neighborhoods. I guess maybe I don't know. I don't know how neighborhoods do it. When I was in Colorado with my kids, we would go out on Halloween anyway, so we weren't staying home for trick or treaters. We would go out. Um, so so I don't know if our neighborhood got. I guess that we got enough trick or treaters. The bowl would be empty, but we'd always leave a bowl out.
Yeah, I live out in kind of a country area, so you have to drive into town, and that's where all the trick or treating's happening
Sure.
because nobody wants to walk for 10 minutes in between houses to trick or treat.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
But so Dan, like I said, you've been very generous with your time. Before
Thanks.
you take off, though, if people want to follow you online, find you at the next Halloween Fest or Thanksgiving Fest or Comic
Yeah,
Con,
I'll do a Thanksgiving fest.
where could they find you online? Any social
Um,
media or
yeah, at Crazy Good Connor. So it's Conner, but I'm Crazy Good Connor on my Facebook's almost maxed out with friends, but you can send a request on there. On Twitter and Instagram, it's at Crazy Good Connor, and then on Facebook, my art page is Dan Connor Comics. So once I'm maxed out with friends, everybody can follow me at Dan Connor Comics on Facebook. But usually, I just post on Facebook on my own page.
so to everybody out there listening, go check out the Instagram, Twitter, all the fun social media, and find out where Dan's gonna be at next, so you can go get some cool variant covers.
Yeah,
Or if you're nowhere near Dan, which is more likely, talk to a comic shop if you're a fan of Nightmare Before Christmas. The book sounds great, and the art in it's really cool. So
thanks.
you'll probably enjoy that, and I'm sure they
Yeah,
will be able to order copies through Diamond or Lunar, whoever is
yeah.
distributing it. So, Dan, thanks so much for spending the time chatting today. I do really appreciate it, and wish you the best of luck in next year with some cool
Thank
projects.
you. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, that's great. It's been a lot of fun.